Hi guys, hope you had a good weekend. So over the weekend I think you translated a line from something we read earlier in the week, and we'll cover that here today. And I also asked you to read lines 25 through 30 of the Gallic Wars. So hopefully you took a look at that. Now you probably found they were very difficult lines. I think they're quite a bit harder than what we've been used to seeing. So today we're going to go through those lines together. And for your homework tonight, I'll give you a question on one of those lines. So make sure you pay close attention to this, because the syntax of these lines gets a little bit involved, I'd say. Like I said, more difficult than what we're used to seeing, but let's work through it. So backing up a little bit, I'm on line 17 here in your text. We'll go through what those lines meant briefly. So, Helvetii loci natura undique continenter. And this is, I think, the one you did for homework over the weekend. The Helvetii, and this people who live in what's now Switzerland, the Helvetii are hemmed in undique, on all sides, by the nature, natura in the ablative, by the nature loci, of the place. And that I asked you to parse that noun loci. It's genitive singular, and it's limiting the noun natura. So it's the nature of the place, the nature of the geography of the Swiss plateau where they live. So they're hemmed in everywhere by the nature of the place. And now we're going to get this little construction, una ex parte. So ex parte here, literally from a part. I'm going to take it in the sense of on one side and then on another side, right? And pars, if you look through the dictionary long enough, if you look far enough down in the entry, it can have that sense of like one side of a place or of something like that. So we're going to say they're hemmed in everywhere by the nature of the place. On one side, by the river Rhine, by the Rhine River, and these are all in the ablative, by XYZ. So from one side, by the river Rhine, very wide and very deep, also in the ablative, agreeing with Reno, and qui agrees with Reno as well. The river Rhine, which dividit, which divides the Helvetians from the Germans. Altera ex parte, so on another side, by the very tall Mount Jura, which divides the Sequanii from the Helvetians. And then finally, tertia ex parte, on a third side, by Lake Geneva, Lacu Lemano, by Lake Geneva, and by the river Rhone, by the Rhone River, which divides our province, Provinciam Nostram, from the Helvetians. And I think the relative clause here, I think the qui refers to the Rhone, refers to the river. That would be my guess. So there we have a bit about the geography, and now we've got quade causa, because of which, because of all this, they were not able easily, so that's a little difficult, but non facile poterant. They were not easily able inferre, to carry out war. To carry out war and its finitimis, war on their neighboring peoples, on people bordering them. Substantive adjective here in the, my guess is it's in the dative case, but I'm not sure. Certainly, whether it's dative or ablative, it's working with inferre, that compound verb. Okay, and then last old line here, belli autem autque gloriae cupidi erant. So autem here, I looked a little bit closer into this word. It's a tricky word because it can either offer an antithesis to what you just said, so like however, or it can sort of corroborate a preceding statement or strengthen it or add some new circumstance that sheds light on what we just read. That's what it's doing here. So they're not very easily able to make war on the people around them. And so this is like an antithesis. Nevertheless, they were errant. They were cupidi. They were desirous of war and glory. So see how the logic of those two lines work? Because of the geography, they're not able to carry out war against the peoples near them. Yet, in spite of that, there are people who are desirous of war and glory. They're a warlike people. Okay, so now we're going to hear a bit more about that. And again, these lines are really tricky, so pay close attention. And we'll take it slowly here. So itaque his rebus adducti et auctoritate orgetorigis per moti. So let's just start there. Now, the subject throughout all these lines we're going to read right now is Helvetii, way up here in line 17. Nominative plural. And so you're going to see third plural verbs that don't apparently have a subject, but the subject is Helvetii. That's who we're talking about. So here we've got itaque and so. So now we're sort of answering line 24 here. They're hemmed in by their geography. They desire war and glory. And so here's what they're going to do. Now, if you look these words up, adducti and per moti, these are two perfect passive participles, which means they use first, second declension endings. So these can both be nominative plural perfect passive participles. Adducti means sort of led toward, or yeah, led toward works well. Led works. You can probably see ducere in here. Ad ducere. So we could say they led, and then we're going to take ablatives here. Led his rebus, by these things. Led by these things. His here is the demonstrative adjective, which I don't know if we've covered yet, and I don't know if we'll get to it formally, but it means this, these, that works. And here it's ablative plural with rebus. So led by these things, and per moti, and stirred up, moved up. You have to look that up again. It's a compound with movere, per movere. So stirred up thoroughly. So stirred up thoroughly, auctoritate in the ablative, by the authority. And then we've got orgetorix. His name is a third declension noun, so here it's in the genitive singular. So by the authority of orgetorix. Right, so that whole phrase, this is just a big participial phrase. And so the Helvetians, led by these things, and his rebus refers to the geography and then the nature of the people. Led by these things and stirred up by the authority of orgetorix. And here's a verb now, constituerunt. They decided. Let's take a look at that word. Constituerunt. Literally put, place, set, station. It's a big word with a lot of meanings. And it has military use. So to station or post troops, to draw up, set in order, prepare. That works well. You see, I'm a ways down in the dictionary here. Let's try prepare here and see how it works. Constituerunt. So it's third plural perfect active indicative, and so we'll say they prepared. Now that idea can take a complementary infinitive. They prepared exire. Exire means go out of. It's a compound ax, that preposition, plus aoire, the irregular verb that means to go. So they prepared to go. Now we've just got prepositional phrases. De finibus suis. They prepared to go out from or away from their own borders. And then cum omnibus copiis, with all copiis. Now this is a tough noun too. Let's take a look at it. And again, notice how I'm using the dictionary. If you enter it, copiis, an abundance, a supply. Okay, with all the supplies, that might work. Now look down here. In military language, copia, and far more frequently in the plural, copiae, men, troops, forces, army. Great. So we can say they prepared to go out from their own borders with all their troops. Okay, they're going to make an expedition. All right, we'll come back through these lines at the end here. We'll keep moving for now, though. Omnia quae ad profectionem pertinebant compera verunt. Okay, we're going to get a lot of different verbs in this section about preparing, making ready, establishing, right? Important to keep them straight. So we have omnia, substantive, neuter, nominative, plural, adjective, or accusative plural here. Could be both, but it's going to be accusative. So all things, and let's make this simple. It's omnia compera verunt. They made ready all things. They prepared all things. And now we just have a relative clause modifying omnia. Que is a neuter, nominative, plural, relative pronoun. So all things which pertinebant. Okay, this is a third plural imperfect verb, and it's a compound again. It's pertineo, and literally means stretch out toward, but as a metaphor, it can mean pertain to. It's the English derivative. Be relevant to. Okay, so all things which pertain, which were pertaining, and pertineo likes to take a construction with the preposition ad with the accusative. So which pertained ad profectionem. Now, profectionem, another new word, right? A going away, a setting out, a departure, a making forth. Okay, so they prepared, omnia, all things which pertained to their departure. All right, so they're getting ready to go on this expedition. Moving down, so we've got mentorum et carorum quam maximum numerum para verunt. Okay, again, pretty tricky because these are genitive plurals. And so eumentum is, it's any kind of like beast of burden, like a yoked animal. So we've got beasts of burden in the genitive plural on the one hand, and then carorum. This should be wagon, right? Carorum, a carus, yep, a wagon. So we've got of the beasts of burden, and of the wagons, okay? Not sure where we're going. I've got this interesting phrase, quam maximum numerum, okay? This is, we touched on this really briefly earlier this semester, and it's not something I would explicitly ask you about without preparing you for it on the exam, but quam plus maximum is the superlative form. It's an irregular superlative form of an adjective. So remember, adjectives have positive, comparative, and superlative forms. And so this is from magnus, great, right? Magnus aum. And it goes magnus in the positive degree, great, big. We have major or major in the comparative, so more. Oh, this would also work from multus, much or many. I think that's actually the sense here. So we have much. In the comparative, we have more, and then maximus in the superlative is most or biggest. Now, when we see quam with the superlative forms of adjectives, it doesn't mean like most. It means as much as possible or as blank as possible. And that's what we have here. So quam maximum, as much, as great as possible, as big as possible. And maximum is neuter accusative singular, I believe. Let's see what numerum is. Oh no, pardon me, masculine. So masculine accusative singular, but numerus is a number, okay? A number, a certain collective quantity, a body, a number. Okay, you get the idea. Number is going to work fine here. So quam maximum numerum is as great a number as possible, as great a number as possible. And now the genitives make sense. As great a number of beasts of burden and of wagons as possible. And now we can fit the verb in, para verunt. This is just paro, parare, first conjugation. It means prepare, and it's perfect here, third plural perfect. So they prepared as great a number as possible of beasts of burden and wagons. Okay, they're getting ready to go. Magnam copiam fermenti para verunt. Nice and easy. So same verb, they prepared magnum copium, a great supply, just an accusative direct object. That's pretty nice. They prepared a great supply, frumenti, of grain, a supply of grain. And fermenti is, you could call it like a genitive of material. But again, it's just this basic sense of limiting the noun copiam. A supply of what? A supply of grain. And last line here, cum proximis civitatibus pacem et amicitiam confirmaverunt. Okay, our verb is confirmaverunt, third plural perfect from confirmo, which means strengthen or make strong, literally. Metaphorically, it can mean establish. So if you make something firm or strong, you establish it. So they established, and here's our accusatives, pacem et amicitiam. They established peace and friendship. Amicitiam means friendship. They established peace and friendship. Now we have an ablative explaining that further. Cum proximis civitatibus. With, proximis is usually nearest, right? Let's look at it. With the nearest. Yeah, and it's another, it's a superlative that's kind of takes on a life of its own as a regular old adjective. With the nearest civitatis. Okay. Body politic is sometimes how this word is done. States works fine, although I don't know how organized these peoples were. We could even say nations. I'm going to say states because, as you'll see in a minute, that's how the translation of Caesar I'm looking at for reference renders it. So they established peace with the nearest states, peace and friendship with the nearest states. Okay, so let's check back through the whole thing. Itaque. And so, led on by these things and stirred up by the authority of Orgetorix, they prepared to go out from their own boundaries with all their troops. They made ready all things which pertained to their departure. They prepared as great a number as possible of beasts of burden and of wagons. They prepared a great supply of grain. They established peace and friendship with the nearest states, with the neighboring states. Okay? And that's that. Again, those are difficult lines. I'll pull one of them for homework tonight and ask you to talk a bit about the grammar. But we're going to keep reading as much of this thing as we can. And remember, again, I always found that once you start reading real difficult Latin, even if you just sort of beat your head against it for a while, that's when your skill really takes off. That's what makes you better. It's like playing a sport. Practice is one thing. When you actually go get game experience, you get a lot better. Or if you're a musician, practicing on your own, helpful. When you go do your recital or play in the concert, then it's like extra helpful. So that's how we're looking at this. And one last thing. It seemed like Thursday. I wanted to do a second live class today. It seemed like Thursday at 10:30 was the same time as Dr. Brake's class for the juniors. So perhaps earlier in the morning on Thursday, I'll put a question on the homework about that. So maybe 9 o'clock Thursday or 9:30. You guys let me know what you think. Otherwise, have a good rest of your Monday.